their voices not being heard, not being acted upon, women being disregarded, lied to, ignored. That needs to change. And the step that we're announcing today, accepting the principle of a maternity and neonatal commissioner that Baroness Amos has referred to in her report, that will help make sure that women's voices are heard in government when decisions are being taken. And crucially, that commissioner will help to deliver and implement the action plan that we'll be producing by the end of the year. So it's a really important role. We want to get it on the statute book so it has real significance, real weight, and the person who is in that role can help us implement the change we know needs to happen.
That's quite a task for whoever takes up the post. What sort of sector would you be looking at to get the person from, and how will you ensure that he or she can be heard?
Yeah, I mean, you're right that it's quite a task. I mean, it won't be, we're not expecting the Commissioner to do this all alone. There is a task force that I chair, which will be developing the action plan, which will be produced on the back of the recommendations from Baroness Amos's report and the recommendations of Donna Ockenden's report last week and all the other investigations that have been recently into maternity service failures. So the Commissioner will not have to do this alone, but they will play a key role because they will be the voice of women in the heart of government when decisions are being taken, and they will help to hold the system to account, will help to make sure that the action plan is implemented across the country and that happens and we can see that it's happening.
If you look at issues such as was dealt with recently in Nottinghamshire, why would you imagine, Secretary of State, we're getting it so badly wrong in such a key area?
You know, that's a question I've asked myself, Nick, because it's so shocking. It's so deeply devastating when you hear the pain that families have been through. And what I've experienced over the last few weeks is that when I've been talking to people about Donna Ockenden's review into what happened in Nottingham, you know, other people in my life, whether that's family members or friends or colleagues or actually another TV presenter, they've all shared their stories about themselves or people they know in their families who've been let down by maternity services too. So the scale of this, I think, is shocking. The scale of this is a deep-seated problem. So I think there isn't a single reason why. We can point to issues with staff shortages, training and so on. But I think underlying all of that, it's a culture problem. There is a culture of cover-up at the top level when things go wrong. There is a culture of ignoring women and not acting on their concerns. There is too often a culture of bullying and intimidation within the workforce. And I think that is what fundamentally needs to change.
Secretary of State, can you tell my listeners, what is normal birth ideology and why has there been a row over this concerning the report?
So normal birth ideology refers to the principle when people think that women should give birth in the traditional way through a vaginal birth rather than a C-section or another approach. So that's what it refers to. The reason why it's come up today is because there is a gentleman who's been participating in Baroness Amos's investigation, who's done a really important job and has real expertise. He's withdrawn from the investigation group, and he said because he has differences of opinions about this. Now,
how much do you regret that Dr. Kirkup has been moved from the report?
Well, I really recognise his contribution. He's got a lot of expertise. His contribution has been really valuable. What I'm really focused on is the substance of Baroness Amos's report. And let me be clear about my view and the government's view on a normal birth ideology, which is that no woman should ever be pushed into a particular type of birth. It should be for women to take that decision, women to choose what type of birth they want. They should do that on the basis of having full information about the risks and benefits of the different options, but they should never be pushed into a particular type.
One other aspect of Baroness's report is the idea of women should have their own maternity A&E. Is that something you support, and if so, how would they work?
Well, I think one of the mechanisms behind that principle you just set out is about having a new triage standard. So what that means is that when women come into maternity services, they are effectively triaged so that problems or potential problems can be spotted earlier and they can get the help they need sooner. That's a prominent recommendation in Baroness Amos's report, and we're going to start implementing a new national triage standard for maternity services before we wait for the full action plan to be completed, because we know we want to get on with that now. And what that will mean is there is a national standard of triage so that when women come into maternity services, they can have more confidence that there will be a high national standard of what triage they get. That helps to spot problems earlier. That helps to mean that if there are issues which could cause harm or could be a threat to women and their babies, they are spotted earlier and the right action is taken.
So you don't foresee separate A&Es as such, Secretary of State?
Well, I think the principle that we need to embed is the one of triage. So when women come into to maternity services, whatever time they come in the way that when people arrive at A&E, they get triaged about what are the risks, what support do you need, what help do you need, what medical intervention do you need. That principle that we all recognise from A&E, and I think we all know how it works at A&E, that principle should apply in maternity services too.
Last couple of minutes ago, congratulations. You seem to have brought peace in our time with our resident doctors. How did you and your colleagues achieve that?
Well, I think, it's good news for not just resident doctors, but also for other NHS staff, because many of them have been doing amazing work covering NHS services during the doctor strikes. But crucially, it's good news for patients. It's good news for patients and the NHS as a whole, because it means we now have the opportunity to have a new relationship with resident doctors where we are focused on improving the NHS and delivering the services that patients deserve. And you have assurances from the BMA there'll be no further votes for industrial action for a period of time? Well, the BMA said clearly yesterday that the strikes are over. We now have an opportunity to implement the deal that's been agreed. That's what I want to get on with, so that we use this opportunity to build a new, better relationship between the government and resident doctors. Lastly, as a senior member of the government and on the round today, we're going to hear the Defence Investment Plan. Can you give us an indication when we might get to that 3% of GDP? So look, the Prime Minister will set out the Defence Investment Plan later on today. If you look at what we've done already as a government, we've got record investment in defence, £270 billion over this Parliament. That is the biggest sustained increase since the Cold War. The Defence Investment Plan is on top of that, so it's extra funding. We know that we're already going to be hitting 2.6% of GDP by next April. And the Strategic Defence Review, which is the basis of the Defence Investment Plan, assumed 2.5% this Parliament, so we're already ahead of the investment that we need. Yeah, but behind where a lot of military personnel, former military personnel, say we should be, of course, Secretary of State, way behind where we should be, they would argue. Well, look, I think investment in defence is going to continue to be a critical question for the years ahead, because we know that the threats in the world are changing and in many cases are getting more profound. So it will be a focus for the government in many years ahead. Grateful for your time. Thank you. Health Secretary James Murray appearing here on LBC telling us about, and we're going to go into more detail, by the way, about that all-encompassing report into maternity provision, 8:28. Let's take a call before we go to the news. Back to Andy Burnham. If you had a question, because he won't take questions from journalists, if you had a question, what might it be? Peter in Kensington, thanks for hanging on the line. What would you say? Peter, good morning.
Good morning, the award-winning Nick Ferrari.
Right, hello, sir. Yes, indeed. What would you say?
The question I'd ask him, Mr. Burnham, you say you want to do something for every postcode in this country. Will you call a general election and give us all a say in whether you are the Prime Minister or not?
Do we need that? Does the pound need it? Do we need the uncertainty? Do the markets need that jitteriness? Do we really need that?
We need to create long-term stability for the markets, and parliamentary parties need to understand that if you kick your leader out midway through a government term, you call a general election as a result. If there's ill health or something other like that, a genuine reason, the Prime Minister's got to stand down, fine. But parliamentary parties have got to get to a point where they understand we're backing this person for the term of the government, 4 or 5 years, whatever it is. That will give stability to markets rather than thinking, who knows whether our Prime Minister will be in 6 months' time.
Peter, thank you for that. Thanks for your kind words about the show. Let's go a minute late to the news because I've got Neil in Makerfield, which is the very heart of the country now, Neil. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Pleasure to speak to you. I've been listening to you for years and I've never rang in, so I'm a first-time caller.
Well, it's great to have you on. Everything has to pass the Makerfield test now, Neil.
Well, I've lived in... I don't even call it Makerfield. I live in Wigan.
Right.
And I don't view it as Greater Manchester. I live in Lancashire as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Makerfield just appeared during this local election, but I'm in there and I've been there for 52 years. Now, Andy Burnham has been my mayor since 2017, and we've been under this devolution revolution, if you want to call it that. But I asked my friends and I asked myself, what has Andy Burnham done for me in this town?
And?
I step outside of my drive, I can see weeds all up the street. Burnham, we've had a Labour MP for decades as well in Wigan. People answer me by saying, look at the B network. We've had buses round here since I was a kid. I used buses. There's no issue at all when I was a kid, going to Wigan Baths, going to Ashton Baths on a daily basis, no problem. It wasn't stupid fees neither. It was reasonable. Now, all of a sudden, the yellow buses,
yes,
they're electric, which was always going to happen. It's just a natural progression that they're going to switch to electric. There's a £2 cap on there that somehow people believe that the bus company is absorbing that cost. They don't realise that people in Wigan are subsidising people who use buses. People who don't use buses are perhaps definitely subsidising people who use buses for the £2 price cap. I remember getting a letter about 10, 15 years ago with my council tax telling me that my money was going to be invested in Metrolink. There's no Metrolink in Wigan, Nick. It's just in Stockport. It's in Oldham. It's around the Manchester city centre areas. And everybody keeps saying about this growth that the North West has got. Wigan is below the national average. Manchester is above it,
right,
city centre. And if this is the future that we're going to have with devolution, I'll tell you now, these towns on the outskirts of cities are going to be left more deprived than what they currently are under Andy Burnham's idea of a political future.
I will leave it there. Neil, first time, first class, do please stay in touch with The View from Makerfield. I think you're going to become a key caller going forward. It's 8:32, Breakfast with me, Nick Ferrari, here on LBC. Let's get to those news headlines. Lottie Morley.
Sir Keir Starmer says the long-awaited defence investment plan will be game-changing for the UK. He's expected to announce £14.5 billion later, with more than a third of that going towards drones. New asylum rules could see migrants forced to pay back £10,000 towards the cost of their accommodation and support. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has said the changes demonstrate asylum support is a right, but also a responsibility. And domestic killers could face an extra 10 years in prison under new government plans. For murders where a weapon is taken to the scene, the minimum sentence will be pushed from 15 to 25 years. LBC weather, a cloudy start with some rain in northern and western parts. Drier in the south with a high of 24 degrees.
Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
The main takeaway from Bernard's speech really was, I'm going to get stuff done. If you're prioritising delivery through the mechanism of mayors, local mayors, I'd bring them all in. I'd put 27 mayors in cabinet. It would send a message to the civil service to say, you answer to these people. And when a civil servant is seconded from Whitehall to Greater Lincolnshire to go and help deliver, they better be grateful, because that's the job now. Get stuff done.
Tom Swarbrick, Monday to Friday from 4 p.m. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Joins me now. Good to see you again. What was it that you addressed yesterday? Good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Nick. How are you on this fine morning?
Grand, thanks. How'd it go yesterday?
Well, it went well for lots of families. They got finally to hear their voice in Parliament, which is something that's, well, I don't think that's ever really happened, really. And I think a lot of families were able to get off their chest how they feel. Unfortunately, I was very disappointed Bridget Phillipson wasn't there. I've tried very, very hard over the course of the last couple of weeks to get her attention, and I'm sure she's seen it, and she wasn't there. I did call her out, and I would sincerely love to invite her to come on your show and meet me and listen to 500,000 families that want their questions asking. Because she's dodging me, Nick. She is dodging me.
What is it you want to ask her, Ollie?
I want to ask her why she is doing these cringy campaigns that nobody likes, no one wants to listen to. Everyone's saying, listen, we've got families that are falling apart, children committing suicide, we've got children out of education. It's an absolute mess, Nick. There's so many things I could say, but with on 4 hours sleep, it's very difficult to do that. But I would tell her a lot of things, and I would tell her some truths that she really needs to hear. And if she'd have been there yesterday, she would have heard some harrowing stories of families. And it was very moving. It was very moving for a lot of people that were there.
How did the campaign move forward yesterday, would you say?
I would say we made progress in the fact that we were able to push our voice out. I was disappointed not so many MPs were in the room to hear these families. They travel far and wide with the little money they have from across the UK. The children travelled as well to be there. And there was hardly any MPs that were actually in there. I'd have to take my hat off to Suella Braverman. She was actually in the room. And I think she thought I was shouting at her, but I wasn't. I was saying, where are the rest of the MPs? And what we wanted to stress in there was that, you know, I heard your call that was on a moment ago about Andy Burnham, and I know he wants to do more for SEND. And he's echoing the fact of mainstream education. Now, my children do not thrive in a mainstream education, and they forget that there are 3 levels to this. You have children that thrive in mainstream, you have children that need specialists that are more complex, and then you have the children we call the send-betweeners, like my children, that do not get enough attention. They are the children that fall between the gaps and the many hundreds of thousands of children that are out of education across the UK at the moment. And I think the MPs need to understand this very important point. If they're not in the room to hear these stories, what's going to happen is we're going to see more of these rioting, we're going to see more of these Ruda Cabana situations, because these are products of what's happened from the failed education system there is now. And you start to cut funding and you don't pay proper attention to this issue right here, right now, things are going to get a lot worse. We're going to have more children that have become adults and go into prison. The economy is going to be affected because of jobs. There is so many. And if they just took the time to listen to families, listen to the everyday people like myself and my followers, I think we could start to see a different country. And one lady said it yesterday, which broke my heart. I posted it yesterday, and she talked about her son and finally got a specialist place. And I said to her, oh, that's really good. She says, no, he's been off so long now, he wants to commit suicide. This country is going to the dogs.
A wide range of people, a wide range of stories yesterday. Oliver, what is the common denominator among the parents and the children, would you say?
Everyone is very, very angry. We feel ignored. We feel we're not being listened to. And we just feel like we're being stonewalled. The local authorities are useless and not fit for purpose. They don't answer the phones. And it's mental. And I, on my channel, Ask Ellie on TikTok and on Instagram and on Facebook, daily post about things like this. I try and support families across the UK. It's just my wife and I with an artificial intelligence that we've built to give people free legal advice. And we're able to achieve, you know, over 500,000 followers in less than a year, helping people every single day. And why can't the government, why can't people like the Department for Education use these platforms to push out help to people, things that they can actually use, rather than putting out absolute garbage? No one wants Bridget Phillipson as an influencer. She couldn't influence my dog could go for a walk. We need to really look at this, and they need to start listening to the people.
Lastly, just explain, you briefly touched on it, how Ask Ellie works.
So Ask Ellie is a website and a social media platform. It's an artificial intelligence, and we deliver help through modern technology, through what's happening now, social media and artificial intelligence, and it allows parents to get help as and when they need it. And we do videos daily that address issues that all families face, and we try and give them the right advice and give them help them become informed with how to protect themselves.
Grateful for your time. Keep the campaigning going. Oliver Lee, thank you, founder of Ask Ellie. You were at that meeting in Parliament yesterday, speaking about the campaigning that will go on. 8:41 is the time. Let's come back to Andy Burnham. I said right at the beginning of that conversation, there's much on his to-do list, but one of them is not taking questions from journalists. But if you had the opportunity, what might you ask him? Annie in Canterbury. What are you going to tell me, Annie? Good morning.
Hello there, Nick. Good morning. I've never spoken about this publicly, so I am a little bit anxious.
Okay.
But basically, Andy Burnham, the question I would ask him was how he's going to keep patients safe, which is quite ironic given the maternity report today as well. I was a midwife and a nurse, but for 20 years, and then for the last 22 years of my career, I worked in patient safety. And one of those episodes was I was the whistleblower in the MRSA and C. difficile deaths at Maidstone.
You were a whistleblower in MRSA. Sorry, I didn't quite. Yeah, MRSA. Yep, go ahead.
That's okay. And that led to the board being dismissed, or most of the board being dismissed. It led to an inquiry, and it also led to changing patient safety around infection control across the country. So I'm proud that I whistleblew. However, prior to us whistleblowing to Anne Widdecombe, myself and some consultant at the hospital.
Just to clarify, was Anne Widdecombe your local MP, just so that I can say?
She was the local MP for Maidstone, which is
down in Kent. Yep, the Weald.
Yeah,
on you go. Yep.
And Andy Burnham had come to open a department prior to me whistleblowing to Anne Widdecombe. He came to open a department that was situated within Maidstone Hospital. He asked to speak to staff from Maidstone and Tunbridge Wells Hospital without managers present, senior managers present. So my consultants and I said, this is our opportunity to raise the concerns about the MRSA and C. difficile deaths that we were having. Hundreds, 100 people died. And
I remember it was a huge scandal.
Yeah, it was huge. It was talked about in Parliament, etc. Yeah. And Andy Burnham came and he listened to us. And at the end of it, he said, this wouldn't happen at my local hospital, and I'll put you in touch with people at my hospital just to see what you can do. He did nothing. We never got in touch with the people. The people never got in touch with us.
Hang on. So his local hospital never then contacted you down in Kent. Is that what we're saying?
Well, yes, but also Andy Burnham was in the Department of Health. He should have done something about it. We were raising the concerns to him that we were all anxious to raise because our board was not listening. And I do not have any confidence that he's going to do things any differently. All he kept saying was it wouldn't happen in my local constituency. And I just felt very disappointed. Now, no.
The purpose of his visit was because of the concerns, or he was visiting otherwise? To just remind me.
He was visiting because of he was opening a department.
I see.
However, he asked to speak to staff in Maidstone and Tunbridge Wells about any concerns they had. He wanted us to do it without the senior managers present.
Yeah. So, and subsequently, all he did was say that would never happen in where he was MP in Lee, I think, then, wasn't he, in Manchester? Then nothing else happened.
Nothing happened. Nothing at all. And then so ultimately I then, I was really scared because I don't care what anyone says, being a whistleblower in the NHS is not an easy thing.
I can imagine.
But I decided I can't see these patients continually.
So as you've watched him effectively go through the coronation as the next Prime Minister, having had that time with him some years back, how have you responded, Annie?
Anger.
Right.
My family know about what happened. My son's a doctor. My family know what happened, and we are quite disappointed that somebody. I don't think he realises that you can't just take what's happened in Greater Manchester and take it to the whole country. You can't just do what you've been doing, because Manchester was a very wealthy place before he became mayor. I've been following his career because of what happened. I've found him quite irritating to me. I mean, his words yesterday, lovely, great. But how's he going to put that into practice? So, but for me, how is he going to keep patients safe?
And he thanks that personal experience of having worked with him. He not really worked because he didn't take any action, but at least having represented the issues to him. And he thank you. Do stay in touch, give him more calls. Coming up after the news, complete change of tack. Crufts Dog Show victory theme, but a Crufts winner has been banned from keeping animals for a decade after more than 70 dogs was found suffering at her home. An extraordinary, rather distressing story. And we'll have more on that after this 8:47 LBC News headlines. Lottie Morley.
A long-awaited plan for defence spending will finally be published later. People seeking asylum in the UK will have to start paying towards the cost of their accommodation and supports. And people who kill their partner or ex at home across England and Wales could face an extra 10 years in prison. LBC weather, a cloudy start across most of the UK with some rain in the north and west, a high of 24 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb. On the M11, the southbound exit Slip Road to the M25 anti-clockwise is closed. It's for the emergency works, which also means there's only one lane open on the M25 anti-clockwise at junction 27, and that's causing delays of about an hour. Also delays on the M25 clockwise on the southern stretch. It's slow for about 40 minutes clockwise to junction 7 at the M23. A car was on fire and 2 of the 4 lanes are closed. The A4 Bath Road is closed westbound in Cranford, and that's because of an accident. On the underground, there are severe delays on the Bakerloo line, and on the trains, Eurostar services aren't going to and from Rotterdam Central Station today because of the ongoing power problem.
This is LBC 060973 LBC.
Inspection in August 2024. She didn't hold a breeding licence. The puppies suffered from malnutrition after they were rescued. Some had severe dental disease, ear infections. 5 dogs had to be put down, and another 2 died within weeks of being rehomed. In defence, her defence counsel said she had spiralled after a bereavement, with the maltreatment done not out of deliberate or malicious intent, but out of neglect. Let's bring Anna Webb, who's dog behaviour and nutrition expert and hosts A Dog's Life podcast, and joins us now. Well, from champ to chump with this woman, what's gone wrong, do you imagine? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Look, this sounds like a very hugely tragic, not only really for the dogs. We know, Nick, that bereavement can cause a lot of psychological issues, of course, and maybe, she lost the will to carry on. However, we have a duty of care. You would assume, and I'm sure this woman is a dog lover, but the images were really startling and, desperately upsetting. So I think, it's about also underlining the fact in an age where dogs are becoming more and more like an accessory, that if you're thinking about buying a puppy, you need to make sure you're not buying the puppy, from a place like this, technically, inverted commas, a puppy farm. That 40 dogs is a lot of dogs for one person to care of in the best of health.
What legislation is there, Anna, to guard against puppy farms and puppy farming?
There are standards, to limit the amount of bitches and so on, that breeding bitches that you have. But actually, the legislation, I think, stops really, really short. You just have to look at Ireland, which I know isn't under British law, but also, in Northern Ireland, there are these big farms which are granted a license. So, you have to look at perhaps maybe slightly darker forces at play here, because a lot of money is received by the government from, tax from these people. So, it's I'm not suggesting that this woman was one of those, although Wales is known to have had a lot of puppy farmers in the past.
Yes.
But it's just, underlining the fact that people really need, when they're looking to bring a dog into their life, to buy from a breeder that they...
But how do you make sure? How do you ensure that you're buying from a reputable breeder, would you say, Anna?
Well, you have to go there in person, meet them, meet the dogs, hang out with them, chat, maybe go there for a weekend, stay in an Airbnb and visit again, maybe go and walk the dogs. Huge amount. The more research and, understanding of the breed that you're bringing into your life, the more chance of a successful relationship. One of my biggest bugbears, I'll be honest, Nick, is shopping online, for dogs, for live animals. It doesn't sit well with me at all, and it opens the door for these big breeders to have a lovely, easy shop window.
Lastly, the court was told that the woman spiralled after bereavement. The other side of that is, my understanding, actually a dog, or indeed a cat, can be hugely supportive to someone when they suffer a bereavement, in that they can turn their love and affection to their dog or their cat or their pet.
Well, this is the part of it, Nick, that I'm a bit confused about, because, yes, the dogs should have been a real support for her, the way to carry on with her routine, as sad as you are. So it's, I don't know why she didn't ask for help or bring in help. Maybe, we don't know all of the circumstances, but help, I'm sure, could have been at hand there.
Anna Webb is a dog behaviour and nutrition expert, hosts the A Dog's Life podcast. Cardiff Crown Court recorder Greg Bull, who is at KC, sentenced the woman to 12 months in jail, suspended for 2 years, ordered her to complete mental health treatment sessions, also said she must pay £10,000 in costs within 12 months, and, as I said at the top of our conversation, has been banned from keeping pets for 10 years. Extraordinary circumstances there. 4 minutes before 9. Let's get one last call in concerning Andy Burnham. We will move on. Obviously, if you've got the man who's going to be PM in 3 weeks, you want to analyse a little of what he said. But, of course, the intriguing thing we're looking at now is what he didn't say and the questions he wasn't asked, because he won't take them. Alex is in the ears. What would you have asked? What would you have asked him, Alex? Good morning.
What would I have asked him? Hello, Nick.
Hello.
Well, I would have asked him of what he was thinking of with this number 10 of the North.
Is it wrong to try and devolve a little bit of power? We have had it down here. Well, I was going to say since time began. That's a little unfair, but since Parliament was formed.
Yeah, but one of my things is like, was he going to be commuting between number 10 North, number 10 South, and is he going to take foreign leaders up to number 10 North to meet them there, or are they they're going to be having to settle for the north rather than going into beautiful London?
If they're going like a state visit, they're going to stay here, because almost certainly they're going to meet the King and or the Queen, of course. That's one of the cards that we play rather brilliantly in this country.
Absolutely, but what is this number 10 of the North? Is it going to help anybody? I don't know. Is it?
Well, let me ask you this lastly. Is it tokenism? Because it sounds quite nice, and I imagine some people living in and around Manchester, although it's worth noting that I've had calls from Cumbria and I've had calls from North Yorkshire saying that they feel rather left behind. But does it help a little bit, do you suppose? It's just almost window dressing, Alex?
Probably is window dressing, really. I mean, it's really, just appeasing the people of the North, really, and, everything happens in London.
Thanks for that. Alex in Erith, just outside of London on the south-east London, Kent borders. Thank you for that. Now, some of you have been talking about the idea of having a general election. Mark in Wimbledon says, I fundamentally disagree there should be a general election. People should not be voting personality for a leader, but rather for a party and its policies. The country would have declined into even more chaos if we had a general election over the last few years every time there was a change of leader, and the suggestion is madness. Yes, I mean, I don't think you want a general election, and it is a bit rich. You have got people, as I said earlier in the show, on the right wing of politics saying this is outrageous, we need a general election, but they seem fairly happy when the Conservatives suddenly became Liz Truss and Liz Truss became Rishi Sunak, so it's not as if it's unknown. Do remember to sign them. This from Andy in Portsmouth. I didn't vote for this man. Now he's pushing policies that weren't even in Labour's manifesto. He's no mandate to rip up the rule book without putting it to the country. Here we go. This is the two different things. If he carries on like this, we could have serious unrest unless we get a general election now. Stick to what Starmer promised or call on the people to decide. This comes in from James in Reading. Andy Burnham. Hot air and good vibes. Black T-shirt, long eyelashes. Do we see the Emperor's not the King of the North's new clothes? I fear that we might. Sandy in Amersham. First on the list for Andy Burnham is getting business fired up and working to build the economy. Without that, he'll be toast. Because without the economy working well, there will be no funds for defence and everything else. Meanwhile, Mike says, Burnham spoke about the whole of the UK, not the North, not taking questions, will change. He clearly wanted the day to be about his ideas. It's not fair. We do need someone with more control. All right, we might continue that conversation, but coming up after the news, the idea to give pregnant women their own A&E after this massive review into the provision of maternity care. Health Secretary James Murray told us,
for far too long, women and babies and their families have been let down by NHS maternity and neonatal services.
Plus, criticism of... Lily Allen supposedly shortchanging her fans with her latest concert. We'll give you full details on that. Plus, asylum seekers should pay £10,000 towards the cost of their accommodation, but where exactly would they get that money from? Those stories and more after the 9 o'clock news on LBC.
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 9 o'clock, Sir Keir Starmer is preparing to set out the long-delayed defence investment plan. It's been pushed back because of a row about military spending, which led to the resignation of Defence Secretary John Healey. The MOD says we'll see the largest ever drone investment into the armed forces, worth £5 billion. Former Defence Secretary Lord Hutton has told Nick any additional resources are welcome.
But I think the question is this going to be enough on its own? And I think the answer to that is very clearly no, it's not. I look at this very much as a first instalment. If we're going to get to 3.5% of GDP, for example, on defence, we need to increase the annual expenditure from about 66 billion, where it is today, to about 100 billion. So if really all that we've got on offer is maybe 15 billion today, obviously it's welcome, but it only gets us so far towards that goal.
Asylum seekers will be expected to pay up to £10,000 to cover their living costs once they start earning. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says they must pay off the full amount before becoming eligible for settled status. More measures are going to be taken to try to improve England's NHS maternity care. We could see a commissioner appointed to oversee the changes after a report found repeated failures. Health Secretary James Murray has told Nick women and babies have been let down for too long.
For far too long, women and babies and their families have been let down by NHS maternity and neonatal services. And one of the things I've heard from families who I've met is about women not being listened to, about women's concerns, their voices not being heard, not being acted upon, women being disregarded, lied to, ignored. That needs to change.
People who kill their partner or ex at home in England and Wales could face an extra 10 years in prison. Currently, sentences start at 15 years because they happen in the home with a weapon likely already at the scene. It could be pushed to 25 years. And Serena Williams is making her return to Wimbledon later. The 7-time champion will take on Australian Maya Joint on centre court in the first round of the women's singles. In the city a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was trading up 18 points at 10,502. The pound buys $1.32 and €1.15. LBC weather, a mix of cloud and rain in northern parts, clearing later to leave sunny spells and showers. Drier in the south, though, with highs of 24 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Lottie Morley.
It's 3 minutes after 9 on Tuesday, the 30th of June. The mother of all scandals, maternity care not fit for purpose. What about the idea of a maternity A&E? How might that work? Plus, in other news, the bizarre idea that asylum seekers should pay £10,000 towards the cost of their accommodation. Former Conservative Immigration Minister Kevin Foster says communities don't want migrants being put in houses in army barracks in their areas.
No one is going to say thank you for this. No one is going to welcome it. And obviously every community will almost certainly object to what's being proposed.
Plus...
Now I'm in London.